Hello, today we're going to be starting the last section of the book. We're going to be reading chapters 19 through 25. And you will have until Thursday at 9 p.m. to read the chapters, annotate, and then complete your assignment, which will be posted on Classroom. So we left off chapter 18 with a good cliffhanger here, the man in the yellow suit. Returning and saying, "Good morning, Mrs. Tuck. It is Mrs. Tuck, isn't it? May I come in?" So we left off there. Here we go for chapter 19. The man in yellow suit came into the sunlit parlor. He stood for a moment looking around at them all, May and Miles and Jessie and Tuck and Winnie too. His face was without expression, but there was something unpleasant behind it that Winnie sensed at once, something that made her instantly suspicious. My inner voice is telling me there, or asking, why is she suspicious? And yet his voice was mild when he said, "You're safe now, Winifred. I've come to take you home." "We was going to bring her back directly ourselves," said Tuck, standing up slowly. "She ain't been in no danger." "You're Mr. Tuck, I suppose," said the man in the yellow suit. "I am," said Tuck formally, his back straighter than usual. "Well, you may as well sit down again, you too, Mrs. Tuck. I have a great deal to say in very little time for saying it." May sat down on the edge of the rocker, and Tuck sat too, but his eyes were narrowed. Jessie said uneasily, "Who in tarnation do you think you—" But Tuck interrupted. "Hush, boy, let him speak his piece." "That's wise," said the man in the yellow suit. "I'll be as brief as possible." He took off his hat and laid it on the mantel, and then he stood tapping his foot on the littered hearth facing them. His face was smooth and empty. I love the description here that the author is giving, or the narrator is giving, about the man in the yellow suit. Again, we're just not getting a lot of great images about him as a person or a character. "I was born west of here," he began, "and all the time I was growing up, my grandmother told me stories. They were wild, unbelievable stories, but I believed them. They involved a dear friend of my grandmother's who married into a very odd family. Married the older of two sons, and they had two children. It was after the children were born that she began to see the family was odd. This friend of my grandmother's, she lived with her husband for 20 years, and strange to say, he never got any older. She did, but he didn't, and neither did his mother or his father or his brother. People began to wonder about that family, and my grandmother's friend decided at last that they were witches, or worse. She left her husband and came with her children to live at my grandmother's house for a short while. Then she moved west. I don't know what became of her, but my mother still remembers playing with the children. They were all about the same age. There was a son and a daughter." "Anna," whispered Miles. May burst out, "You got no call to come and bring us pain." And Tuck added roughly, "You got something to say, you better come to the point and say it." There now," said the man in the yellow suit. He spread his long white fingers in a soothing gesture. "Hear me out. As I've told you, I was fascinated by my grandmother's stories. People who never grew older. It was fantastic. It took possession of me. I decided to devote my life to finding out if it could be true, and if so, how and why. I went to school, I went to university, I studied philosophy, metaphysics, even a little medicine. None of it did me any good. Oh, there were ancient legends, but nothing more. I nearly gave it up. It began to seem ridiculous and a waste of time. I went home. My grandmother was very old by then. I took her a present one day, a music box, and when I gave it to her, it reminded her of something. The woman, the mother of the family that didn't grow old, she had a music box." May's hand went to the pocket of her skirt, her mouth open, and then she shut it again with a snap. "That music box played a very particular tune," the man in the yellow suit went on. "My grandmother's friend and her children. Anna, was that the daughter's name? They'd heard it so often that they knew it by heart. They'd taught it to my mother during the short time they lived in the house. We talked about it then, all those years afterward, my mother, my grandmother, and I. My mother was able to remember the melody finally. She taught it to me. That was nearly 20 years ago now, but I kept in my head. It was a clue." The man in the yellow suit folded his arms and rocked a little. His voice was uneasy, almost friendly. "During those 20 years, he said, I worked at other things, but I couldn't forget the tune or the family that didn't grow older. They haunted my dreams. So a few months ago, I left my home and I started out to look for them. following the route they were said to have taken when they left their farm. No one I asked along the way knew anything. No one had heard of them. No one recognized their name. But 2 evenings ago, I heard that music box. I heard that very tune, and it was coming from the Foster's wood. And next morning early, I saw the family at last taking Winifred away. I followed, and I heard their story, every word. Okay, I'm going to pause there. And you guys are going to finish reading chapters 19 through 25. Do not read the epilogue. Let me tell you, do not read the epilogue. We will read it together as a class next week. Do not read the epilogue. You are only reading chapters 19 through 25, okay? You'll see you have your last 5 vocab words for the book: ghastly, exertion, furrowed, exultant, and accomplice. I have the page numbers there as well. Please do not forget the part of speech. You also have 2 inner voices about whatever you want related to this section. Whatever you want. This assignment is not due until Thursday at 9 p.m. So you have today, Tuesday, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday after you take the vocab quiz to complete the assignment. So there is no rush, but also please don't procrastinate. Let me know if you have any questions.